to the news today. This is One-on-One. Egypt and Israel have had an interesting and critical relationship over the years. Though publicly the two countries have called peace, they have conducted talks behind the scenes. And while that may have changed for a time, when the Muslim Brotherhood rose to power in 2012 with President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi now ruling Egypt, the ties are set to be closer than ever. My guest tonight is Levana Zamir, President of Israel-Egypt Friendship Association. Is there a friendship? Good evening, and thank you very much, first of all, for coming.
Good evening, Ahlan.
Ahlan fiki. Is there a friendship? Because I was always told that the peace, the relationship that we have with Egypt is, well, some leaders decided to have peace. It doesn't mean that we have to be friends. And now you're coming and saying that there is a friendship between Israel and Egypt.
Yes. During 30 years or more, we had ups and downs with Egypt. At the beginning, you know, with Sadat, it was such a good shalom. And all of a sudden, it was the cold shalom, the cold peace. And with Mubarak, it was also sometimes ups and downs. After Jericho, it was again good. We had relationship, also commercial ones. And of course, as you said, with the Muslim Brotherhood, it went down totally. Today it's nice.
Was there a worry among the Israeli government when the Muslim Brotherhood rose, when Morsi took control? Was there a fear that maybe this treaty will break between Israel and Egypt?
I will tell you, Lucy. At the beginning, at the beginning of the revolution, as an Egyptian born in Egypt, I am Israeli, of course, but as an Egyptian born, we were very glad for the people of Egypt, for Egyptian people, that they did this revolution to be more democratic, because we know, all of us know, that only a democratic country could make real peace and normalization. That's the point. We had no normalization. We had connections, of course, Israel, Egypt, but no normalization at all. Egyptian tourists never came to Israel, only at the beginning. I remember when they came, it was such really happiness. But now, talking about today with Sisi, it changed completely. We have here a proof. Look, we have a Congress, as you know, on Sunday, next Sunday, for 3 days. At the end of the Congress, we are going to hold a exhibition, Egyptian exhibition paintings from a painter, from an artist from Australia, born in Egypt. She's international. She's bringing to Israel her paintings only, you see, only Egypt.
Yes, Egyptian
from the
Egyptian
1930
paintings. Yes.
And the 1940. We call it the golden era of the Jews of Egypt. And she's bringing this, and what? For the first time, after many years, we have a guest from Egypt, an historian, Egyptian, Muslim, an Egyptian, and he's coming especially to Israel for this exhibition about the golden era.
Was it hard to bring him to Israel? Was it hard to convince him to come to Israel? Because the perception of Israel among the Egyptian is totally different than the perception of the Israelis on the Egyptian people, because we used to go to Sinai before all the chaos started in the Sinai Peninsula. But we used to go to Sinai and have our vacations, and the Egyptians, like you said, didn't come here. What is the perception of them?
I will tell you. Two years ago, he would never come. He would say, I cannot, I am busy. But today, with Sisi and with the new way of Sisi, there is no fear. If it was a fear, he wouldn't come. But he's coming for the golden era, because he is himself historian of the kingdom, when Egypt was a kingdom. So he feels like we feel. He has a nostalgia about Egypt as it was in our heart now. Egypt, we know, Egypt where I was born, doesn't exist anymore. It exists only in our minds, in our hearts, and we love it. And he's the same. He's like us. He studied in the same schools like us.
What do you remember from your Egypt, from the Egypt that you were born
I will tell
into?
you. I remember my best friend at school. She was a Muslim, and the third one was a Christian. We were the trio at school. Aitan Heikal, the Muslim friend. Heikal, you know, it's a big aristocratic family. We were the best friends at school, everywhere. We were there, always together. She came to Israel. She came, she slept in my house. It was such a happiness for me. We never talked politics. We just were friends, people to people. That's what Egyptians are really. You know, Egyptian people, they love the other. They don't hate. But something happened during 20 years of
What
Mubarak.
happened? Is it exactly? You touched on the
Hate.
point. The period of Mubarak,
Yeah.
President
Yes.
Mubarak, was because some people will say that he had really a steady relationship with Israel, that he kept the status quo,
Yes.
that he kept the relationship like in a certain position, that it was good for both sides.
Yes.
But on the cultural level, on the, let's say, education level,
Yeah.
it didn't work out. It didn't work out. How come? Because it seems to me very, very strange that Mubarak was not eager to, let's say, open up the relationship between Israel and Egypt.
He didn't continue Sadat way. Sadat wanted normalization. He did the peace, but he was killed. We were all so sorry about that. So we could only think that Mubarak was afraid. He was afraid for his life. He saw him dead. He was there. He's been killed. Perhaps this is why he stopped Sadat way.
And do you think Abdel Fattah al-Sisi can go in the same way that Sadat went?
Yes, he can. I will tell you why. Because Egypt today, the people of Egypt, they understood that Nasser way was very bad. They know exactly now. That Mubarak way was very bad. And the Muslim Brotherhood is the worst of all. So they are now with Sisi. Of course, there are the movement of Muslim Brotherhood, which is what? Which is Hamas. Hamas is against Egypt today. It's not,
But
you know,
do you
it's
think
not
that
my
this is...
subject, but it tells everything. Muslim Brotherhood, Hamas, all of these people are against Sisi. And Egypt doesn't want the Muslim Brotherhood. You know what? I think that this revolution was a women revolution because the Egyptian women, they don't want the tarha. They don't want the burqa. They are really liberal people. I am sure that it is the women revolution. You know what I mean.
Yeah, and whomever was, let's say, watching Egyptian movies at the 60s and the 70s, he saw a totally different liberation and a totally different women wearing and acting and maybe behaving in a way that people don't expect from Muslims. This is happening this week, right?
Yes, next week. We begin the Congress on Sunday, and the real subject of our Congress is the preservation of the holy places, the Jewish holy places in Egypt.
For whomever is coming to Israel from our viewers and planning a vacation this week in Israel, we invite him to come and see this Congress and to share with you this painting exhibition. Thank you very, very much for coming to our studio and sharing with us even your small personal story. Thank you very much. Thank you, our viewers, for being with us tonight. Tomorrow we will be here at the same time, same place from the Jaffa Port, Israel. Have a great night.